Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan with Screenwriter's Rant on the Tender Bar, starring Ben Affleck as the good uncle. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Please check out my books. The links are in the description. If you'd like to support the channel, give me an upvote. Perhaps think about purchasing a book, ebook, trade paperback, Kindle Unlimited is free. There's an audiobook too. Lots of cool stuff over there at Amazon. Now, speaking of Amazon, this is a Prime movie, so I assume it'll be on Prime. Takes place in the past. I think it starts out in the 60s or 70s, late 60s, early 70s maybe. And it's about a kid growing up. It's based on a memoir. Christopher Lloyd plays the grandpa, and Ben Affleck plays the good uncle who runs a bar in Boston, of course, because it's very Boston-y type thing. It takes him, pin bowling. And the kid grows up, but his dad's kind of a deadbeat. And he wants to be a writer, so the uncle encourages him and basically raises him. And then it cuts to when he's in college, and it's directed by George Clooney. So he goes to Yale, and he meets a girl, and he's in love with the girl, and he wants to be a writer. And so it's about, life. It's a guy who basically became a writer to write his life story about becoming a writer. Which I don't think it looks bad. I think it looks pretty good. I mean, you got a pretty solid cast. December 17th. It's rated R, but, it's got a nice positive message. It's nice to see a positive message. Everybody's doing 80s, 70s stories now, right? Every freaking trailer that comes down the pike, it's 80s, 70s. Why? Oh, because the idiots on Twitter can't say anything about that. See, they can't blast the past. They can't get mad at the smoking or the misogyny or the cis-normative what's-a-names, right? So that's why I said this in a video like months back. This is why everybody's gravitating towards that. Because you can't change the past, wokies, even as they try. So, it looks good. It looks harmless. It's going to be, and this is the main kid. I think the premise of the first act is going to be about him growing up, wanting to become a writer. The uncle in his life is positive, and his father's just so negative. And so it deals with his family trauma. Second act, he grows up, he goes to college, falls in love, and the uncle's still teaching him good, positive things, but his dad is still a negative influence. And then the third act comes to a head with, the girl and whether or not he's going to make it at the New York Times. It's still very much a romanticized notion of a lot of lefty things, like the New York Times, like going to college, which was once a great thing. During this era, sure, it was great. The institutions were there. The New York Times wasn't a complete and utter shadow of its former self. It wasn't full of communists ranting about America nonstop and trying to promote the 1619 Project. It was actually somewhat credible in this era, if not very credible. Universities, same thing. This guy's going to Yale. What's Yale like now? What's Harvard like now? They're absolute wrecks. Wokeness has destroyed them. So naturally they have to gravitate to this, or you can't even have a narrative. How can you have a narrative in the modern day like this? Can you imagine doing a story that takes place in 2021 where a kid grows up, his uncle becomes his father figure, and then he goes to a bar where they're still smoking, and it's a very manly thing where he tells them manly things like never hit a woman even if she stabs you with scissors. And then he goes to college and meets a girl, even though in this one she is African American or black. I'm not sure which. Well, it's pretty much the same thing. So they're trying to even creep a little bit of wokeness in. Who knows how they deal with that. It doesn't appear to be the focus of the movie, but it's going to be a positive thing because it takes place in the past. But they have to rely on the past because the present is an absolute shambles. You can't tell a story in the present without Twitter blowing a gasket and saying, you're pushing these narratives. Where is the representation? Meanwhile, they can't. They can't seem to get it together to press for representation in a movie like this. Because if you had representation in a movie like this, it would be portrayed as completely different. It would overwhelm the movie and take over the narrative, which is probably what they want. So I'm sure they'll have things to complain about, but they got other bigger fish to fry, the Wokies. I say, yeah, this is probably decent. I mean, if you got Amazon Prime, there's Ben Affleck doing his meme again. Remember the meme with him smoking the cigarette? That almost looks like the same exact expression. So yeah, this looks good. And Clooney, maybe he can direct. I don't know. All right. So The Tender Bar. It's a weird name. The Tender Bar. So check it out. It's on Prime, December 17th.